Welcome to Mysterious Encounters. There exists a text so small, it could be written on a single page, and yet for centuries it has been regarded as one of the most powerful pieces of knowledge ever recorded. Not because of its size, but because of what it implies. It is known as the Emerald Tablet, a mysterious inscription attributed to a figure who exists somewhere between myth and memory. Hermes Trismegistus, a name that echoes through ancient civilizations. A fusion of two worlds, the Greek messenger god, Hermes, and the Egyptian keeper of wisdom, Thoth, a bridge between knowledge systems, a symbol of something older than both. But the tablet itself is not a story. It is not a teaching in the traditional sense. There are no explanations, no step-by-step instructions, only a series of short, cryptic statements, written almost like code, fragments of a larger truth, condensed into a few lines, and among those lines, one has survived the longest, repeated across centuries, whispered through secret traditions, studied but rarely understood, as above, so below. At first glance it sounds poetic, almost philosophical, a simple reflection between heaven and earth. But the deeper you look, the more precise it becomes. This is not poetry, it is a principle, a rule, a statement about the structure of reality itself. That what exists on one level must exist on another. That patterns are not isolated, they repeat, they echo, they mirror across all scales, from the largest structures in the universe to the smallest particles we can observe. The movement of galaxies, reflected in the orbit of electrons, the cycles of planets, mirrored in the rhythms of the human body. Expansion, contraction, birth, death, renewal, not random, not disconnected, but synchronized, as if reality itself is built on a repeating framework, a design that folds inward and outward at the same time. Ancient traditions did not see this as coincidence. They saw it as evidence that the universe operates through correspondence, through relationships, through patterns that link everything together. And if that is true, then understanding one layer of reality means gaining insight into all others. This is where the Emerald Tablet becomes something more, not just a statement, but a key that suggests the external world and the internal world are not separate, that what happens within you is reflected outside of you, and what exists in the world around you is mirrored within. This idea became the foundation of what we now call alchemy, but not the version most people imagine, not the turning of lead into gold, not the pursuit of physical transformation, but something far more complex and far more subtle. Alchemy, in its original form, was about transformation of the self, the refinement of perception, the restructuring of awareness, turning confusion into clarity, fear into understanding, fragmentation into coherence. Because if reality is built on correspondence, then changing one layer affects the others. The outer world responds to the inner state, the visible reflects the invisible. This is why the Emerald Tablet was never widely explained. It was encoded, symbolic, protected, because knowledge like this is not just information, it is power. The power to see patterns others cannot, to recognize systems hidden beneath the surface, to understand that what appears chaotic may actually be structured, and what appears separate may actually be connected. Over time, fragments of this idea began to surface across different civilizations, in sacred geometry, in architecture, in religious symbolism, in the design of temples, cities, even systems of governance, not always openly, but consistently, as if those who understood the principle left traces, markers, clues for those capable of seeing them. And yet, the full system was never revealed. Only pieces, only hints, which raises a deeper question. Was the Emerald Tablet ever meant to be complete? Or is it exactly what it appears to be, a fragment, a surviving piece of a much larger body of knowledge that has been lost or deliberately hidden? Because if the principle is true, if everything reflects everything else, then the implications are difficult to ignore. It would mean that reality is not random, not disconnected, but structured, layered, interwoven, a system where every level influences the next, where the micro shapes the macro, and the macro defines the micro. A closed loop, a feedback system, a design. And if that design exists, then the final question is not just what the Emerald Tablet says, but why it was preserved, why this fragment survived, while so many others disappeared. Was it meant to guide, to awaken, to reveal a truth humanity was ready to understand? Or is it something else entirely, a controlled release, a single piece of a much larger puzzle, given just enough to spark curiosity, but not enough to complete the picture? Because once you begin to see the pattern, it becomes difficult to unsee it. Connections begin to form, systems begin to reveal themselves, and reality starts to look less like chance and more like structure. The Emerald Tablet does not give you answers. It gives you a lens, a way of seeing, a principle that once understood changes how you interpret everything. So the question is no longer, what does it mean? But rather, what happens when you apply it?